Well, I've been working on something pretty cool, something that I've wanted to do for a long time. Uh, I've always, ever since I was young, been a big fan of Field and Stream and Outdoor Life magazines. I've always enjoyed reading the articles, the hunting adventures that they've always been really good about sharing. And the cool part about that is I could read those stories and kind of visualize in my mind what those adventures were like. And little did I know that I would, at some point, become a videographer and be able to experience some of those type adventures for myself. But one of the coolest stories that I ever read was in a Hunter magazine by that's a NRA publication, and it's called the Legend of Old Groaner, and it actually come from, to tell you how special this story is or how much I've always enjoyed it, is I kept this magazine, and this magazine, this Hunter magazine, is from 1981. Look at that right there, 1981. So I put this up. I enjoy, I really enjoyed reading this article, and I've always been a big fan of campfire stories and hunting tales and stuff like this. And this has always been a really cool one to me. When I was a scoutmaster for a little while, whenever we did campfire stories, I always read this to the boys, and I've always enjoyed it. So what I wanted to do was to bring this story to life. So not only did I enjoy Field and Stream, Outdoor Life magazines, I always enjoyed the old pictures. My favorite are the older magazines. I enjoyed the artwork, Frederick Remington type art and stuff that they used in the magazines, and I've always been a big fan of that. So what I did is I took this story, The Legend of Old Groaner, and I pulled some of those old photographs from way back, and I kind of brought the story to life by adding some visuals to it. So I hope you enjoy it. So one of my favorite stories, and like I said, it's so special that I've kept a magazine stuck back from 1981. Here it is, The Legend of Old Groaner. Out of the Alaskan night came a long, agonizing moan that sent icy shivers through Bruce and Jack Johnston. Abruptly, the brothers stopped eating to listen while their eyes probed the misty darkness. Their dog Slasher rolled to alert, cocked his ears, sniffed toward the inky sounds. Slowly the fear rumbled in his throat as again from the murky woods came the low, quivering sob of a creature in agony. The men yanked their rifles from their scabbards and huddled near the fire to wait. Didn't sound like a bear or wolf, they agreed, or even a moose, for it was too deep and long. Was it a wild creature, or could it be human? Weird tales of abominable snowmen crept out of the Yukon River country. Never in their career as woodsmen had Bruce or Jack Johnston heard a cry so mournful and in such an isolated spot. They felt their spines chill once more. The sound came, louder, and seemed to move toward them. With rifles in hand, they built the fire until its light danced ghost-like across the reaching branches and blazed down the mossy tassels. Then followed a tense, suffocating silence and a long night of waiting. This incident took place in the summer of 1933, when the Johnston brothers packed into the headwaters of the Yukon River for a season of prospecting near the Alaskan-Canadian border. The men had battled their pole boat up the foaming river into glacial land of majestic mountains and deep canyons where legends of gold made men chance their lives against sucking whirlpools of wild animals. For 5 days they struggled, sometimes portaging, sometimes fighting flood-force waters that nearly dumped them. With determination, they pushed into the new country that offered excitement and plenty of challenges. Finally, 19 miles up the Yukon, they found a small stream the pioneer trappers had called Cripple Creek. There was an open grove of spruce, so they beached the boat, built a crackling supper fire, and they stretched to rest when they heard the grotesque moans. That night, while they lay sleepless, debating the mystery, they recalled that nearly 10 years before, Jesse Sethington, a Canadian from Stewart, British Columbia, had ventured into Yukon on a prospecting journey. Against the advice of woodsmen, he had gone alone. When he failed to return, 4 veteran guides followed to find his camp abandoned at Cripple Creek. There was no trace beyond there, and Jesse Sethington was never heard from again. Thinking of Sethington, one brother suggested the possibility of a wild man, but the other doubted any human could survive the deadly winters. Little did the men dream that the blood-curdling moans would haunt them for the next 3 years, and when one of them faced its cause, he would brush with death. In the morning, they explored the maze of bear trails that laced the stream's edge, where thousands of salmon spawned. They scoured the area from where the sounds had come from the night before, but found nothing. While looking for flake gold one day at Suffolk Creek, a rich stream far in the glacial interior, Jack and Bruce saw a hulking grizzly on the opposite bank. Without provocation, the animal charged. Although the river was too swift and deep for man to ford, the bear kept coming in a straight course. Jack realized that the animal meant to attack and opened fire with his .45-70. Each bullet ripped into the animal, but it kept plowing forward, raging mad. As the bear raised from the water's edge, Jack fired the last 2 rounds, splitting its abdomen and breaking the back. Amazingly, the grizzly still was full of fight. Jack was forced to use his pistol. With a roar of agony, the beast crashed back into the water and was whirled away. This incident weighed heavy with the brothers, warning them that the Yukon bears were to be taken seriously. With limited mining success, they returned to Cripple Creek in the boat, feasting en route on 20-inch trout that eagerly snapped up hooks baited with gleaming red huckleberries. The following summer, the Johnstons journeyed from their home in Ketchikan to Cripple Creek, and again they camped under the spruce, choosing this site for its convenience. As they made supper, they spoke of the mysterious moaner, laughing at their fear. But before the embers dulled, the same quivery sobs dripped out of the night. From across the river, the snorting groans advanced until they were quiet and distinct. Later the brothers rolled out under some protective spruce and dozed. Jack was awakened, however, by a creeping sense of something near. Lifting quietly to his elbows, he stared into the cavernous black, but could distinguish nothing. Gradually, he became aware that the opening of light between the trees was gone. Daring not to breathe or move, he felt the strangulation of fear as he made out the outline of a huge object towering over him. Quickly, Jack lunged for his rifle as a rattly snort blew rank breath in his face. Slasher flew into action with gnarling fury. Pounding, snorting, yapping, gnashing of teeth, and crashing of brush brought both men bounding from their bags and firing into the darkness. They stirred the fire and shakily brewed some coffee as the vigilant police dog limped back into camp. That fall, the brothers again camped at Cripple Creek, hoping to solve the mystery of the Old Groaner, as they now called him. They sat impatiently around the fire, waiting. When nothing happened, they retired, only to be awakened by familiar moans. The next morning, they explored the vicinity. They followed an impressive set of prints into the brush, where to their delight they discovered quartz that proved to be mineralized. When they returned to the spot with tools, Slasher bolted into the thick underwood. From the lashing brush came the sound of snapping teeth and growls. They knew it was a bear, only a few feet from them, if they had not seen it. Then through the commotion came a hair-raising groan. When Slasher returned, the men examined the tracks, aware now that Old Groaner was an enormous and dangerous grizzly that apparently had been hiding and waiting for their approach. The brothers left the creek that day, for the gold vein had lost its appeal. It was the summer of 1935 when the men next encountered the ghostly bear. They and their partner, George Lemons, had camped at a familiar spot on their way to the upper claims, when Jack and George had examined an outcrop where Slasher had routed the grizzly. Bruce rode across the creek to look for new outcroppings. Not expecting to go far, he left his rifle in the boat and carried only a .410 single-shot pistol used for close-range grouse. A snort from the nearby huckleberries both startled and worried him, as he knew the particular warning could mean business. Hoping the threat was directed toward another bear, he began quietly withdrawing. But his fear was confirmed as the thrashing started toward him, and accompanied by deep moans. With a sick feeling, he knew that Old Groaner was after him. Bruce fired at the swaying brush as the grizzly halted, advanced, and halted again. Angry groans were vented from the waving brush as the bear kept advancing steadily. With relief, Bruce reached the edge of the woods, turned and sped toward the boat and his rifle. Falling to the wet sand, he rolled over with his rifle pointed at the forest edge, but the Bruin did not appear. Camp discussion was lively that night as the men delved into the mystery. Why, they wondered, did the bear moan so often, and why was he so secretive? As yet they had never seen him, but for certain they knew he was extremely dangerous. Weeks later, when the piercing fall winds forced them from the high mountains, they again stopped at Cripple Creek to work the lower claim. The creek was loaded with silver salmon that, according to the tracks, had brought countless bears. If the men were to remain long, it would be necessary to build a cabin as shelter from the weather. From the cottonwood grove, they constructed the foundation and settled for the night. As before, Old Groaner approached with the darkness. His fearful moans sounded closer than ever. Each night it seemed he was growing bolder. The three men had anticipated their visitor and had assembled a massive pile of dry wood. Again the grizzly came right to the camp's edge as the flames licked high. Still, the men did not see the marauder clearly before Slasher had driven him away. Waiting with cocked rifles, they listened to the combat. Several times they fired at moving shadows, but the cold wind was strong and the shrubs waved and danced. Eventually the ghost bear moved away, and the following time, as the men finished building their small cabin, quite often they heard the grizzly as he moaned by night, but never again did he come as close to camp, nor did they venture far outside the firelight. At last the cold of early winter forced the men to abandon their work. Before leaving, Bruce decided to place a location notice on the claim. Taking his .38-72 rifle and Slasher, he walked to the outcropping, cut and chiseled a post, wrote on it, and knelt to pound it in. Suddenly, Slasher yelped to his feet and leaped past his master. Twisting around, Bruce saw, not 5 yards away, the distorted head of a giant, one-eyed bear, with his teeth bared hideously. Slasher caught the lunging bear by the throat, only to be somersaulted 20 feet by a sweeping paw. Lifting his rifle as he sprang to his feet, Bruce fired from his hip as the mountainous tank of flash roared upon him. He half spun and then fell to his side as the hulking form plunged past, smashing to the earth with a violent moaning sob. Infuriated, Old Groaner bellowed and clawed to his feet, his eye amber, his mouth wide and wet. He veered defiantly as Bruce sliced the second bullet through his throat. Again the grizzly thudded to the ground, rolled to his feet, moaned, raged, and pawed wildly. With one cartridge left, Bruce hesitated, then fired for the ear, and Slasher hurled and landed on the Groaner's back. With a final sinking moan, the brute collapsed, shuddered, and stilled. While Bruce watched with shaking body and empty gun, the dog pulled and tugged at the hide. When assured the demon bear would not rise miraculously again, Bruce moved in for an examination. The sight was nightmarish, but now Bruce knew the reason for the painful moans. The wide head was deformed and had only one eye. Scar tissue had crept up over the right eye like a twisting blinder. The jaws were contorted, loosely hung with ulcered teeth. The animal had scanty hair, in some spots none, which revealed leathery hide as dark and scaly. It was a ghastly sight and made Bruce go for his companions. It took all three men to roll the pair so they could see how Bruce's first bullet had entered the right shoulder and the second had split the throat. They marveled at the twisted, scarred head, realizing that for 3 years they had chanced their lives with a deranged man-killer. Because the head was such an oddity, they tried to sever the skull with knives. So thick was the hide that an axe was needed. Later, while skinning the head, a 12-year-old mystery was solved, and a terrible story of conflict between beast and man unfolded scar by scar. Here they found Bruce's third and last bullet, lodged in the left cheekbone. It had passed through the brain to kill the bear. The right side of the head and eye had been shot away by an old slug, while another entered from the side through the same eye, and yet a third had creased the base of the skull. But most amazing of all were the jaws, which had been shattered, broken, and healed. Numerous skull wounds, now white and clean, still contained 2 bullets from a .33 caliber rifle. In the gristle under the lower jaw were 3 bullets from a .38 revolver. Jesse Seddington, who had vanished 12 years before, had owned a .33 rifle and a .38 revolver. The men who had tracked him by the campfires had lost him somewhere near Cripple Creek. So from the position a man would have to be in to fire 3 bullets into a bear's throat and lower jaw, the men knew beyond a doubt what had happened to Jesse Seddington. The following year, the brothers returned to the creek and picked up the skeleton. They found that the backbone had been smashed at some time. 4 of the vertebrae and 2 crushed ribs had grown into one solid bone. The front paw measured 10 inches across, and the skull measured 17 inches long and 11 inches wide. Old Groaner, the ghost bear that moaned, is now a legend of the North.